to this edition of the Schreiber Times podcast version in quarantine of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm Zach. I am the features editor at the Schreiber Times, and I'm joined today by members of Dr. Sachs' journalism class, second semester senior journalism class. So as we all know, quarantine has given us a lot of free time on our hands, and most of us have taken up watching shows and movies all over Netflix or other streaming platforms. So today, Dr. Sachs' class is going to talk about some of the shows and movies they've been watching, give us some suggestions, and we'll just discuss those. So we have 4 members from the class, and first up is Dee Neocleous. And Dee, tell us what you've been watching in quarantine.
Okay, so I actually read a book, and then Hulu came out with a series. So I watched the show Little Fires Everywhere, and I wrote a comparison of the two. So
Perfect.
it tells the story of 2 families, the Richardsons and the Warrens, in 1997, living in the pristine and orderly suburb of Shaker Heights, Ohio. In a self-righteous act of charity, Elena Richardson, played by Reese Witherspoon, is an upper-class perfectionist that helps Mia Warren, played by Kerry Washington, and her daughter Pearl. Mia and Pearl are constantly on the move, migrating in their beat-up car from city to city, a lifestyle that Mia attributes to her art practice while her intelligent daughter Pearl merely tolerates it. The lives of Elena and her husband Bill and their 4 children are entangled with the Warrens as Pearl befriends their children. Meanwhile, Mia comes on as the Richardsons' part-time house manager to keep an eye on her daughter during playtime. While Pearl grows increasingly entranced by what she sees as the Richardsons' ideal, stable family life, one of Elena's daughters, the black sheep of this picture-perfect, all-American family, begins to idolize Mia and assist her with her art. The TV adaptation is pretty similar to the book, but the most apparent difference is the casting of black actors in the roles of Mia and Pearl, whose race is not specified in the book. This adds an additional dimension to the plot and changes many of the interactions in the story. It shaped the tone of Elena's invitation to Mia to serve as the Richardsons' house manager and allowed the writers to add scenes that strike more contemporary and political chords. For example, one scene in which Elena and Mia's kids get in trouble for trespassing. Mia scolds Pearl, explaining that they aren't like the Richardsons. The cops are not on their side. In the book, Lexi Richardson takes advantage of Pearl by having her write her college admission essay for her in the show. Pearl's experience of discrimination for her essay allowed the incident to take on broader significance, as well as creating a rift between Lexi and Brian, her boyfriend. In a story that already addresses challenging topics such as class, race, abortion, each scene is treated more like an opportunity to illustrate microaggressions rather than a chance to develop its characters. Still, the effort to put an emphasis on diversity in both cast and theme is well executed. The powerful performances of the Little Fires Everywhere cast draws the viewer into the tense plot as it unravels.
Perfect. I mean, so I feel like my obvious question now is, like, given everything that's going on with race relations in the U.S., do you feel like now after watching that, do you see a lot of the same ideas that were happening in the show?
Yeah, so there's definitely like colorblindness in politics back in the 1990s. But now, I wrote this a month ago, but it's crazy to go back and see how the world has changed in a month. But it definitely puts an emphasis on the differences between the book and the show.
Right. And were you able to read the book, or did you just see the show?
No, I read the book first.
Oh, okay. And then which one do you like better after both?
I like the book better. The show changed everything. They even changed the ending of the story, which was pretty sad. Yeah.
Okay. And would you recommend this book and show combo to other quarantine people?
Yes, it's very interesting and very time consuming.
Okay. Sounds good to me. And it sounds like it really, especially given everything that's going on, strikes current political chord. So thank you so much for that review. Okay. Next, we're going to go to Eric Epstein, and he spent time in quarantine watching a hit Netflix show called All American. So Eric, why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I watched All American very quickly in about 3 days, and I really enjoyed it. So I'll share my TV series review on All American. Sports drama, music, daily problems, secrets, everything you can look for in a high school show. Available to view on Netflix and the CW network, All American, starring Daniel Ezra, Taye Diggs, Breezy, Greta Oniegwa, and Samantha Logan, has 2 seasons, and each season has 16 42-minute episodes. Daniel Ezra, who plays Spencer James, makes the viewer feel like he, Ezra, has lived in a California poor neighborhood filled with gangs his entire life. Spencer James, the main character, is a football superstar wide receiver and has not experienced life outside of Crenshaw. That is where his home is and his family. South Crenshaw may have gang violence and many gun deaths a month, but this does not prevent Spencer from loving where he is from and sticking by his friends and family's side. A 40-minute drive from Crenshaw is its practical opposite, the beautiful, rich, mansion-filled Beverly Hills. Spencer's offered a chance at a fresh start, and the opportunities presented to him are endless. What happens to Spencer is both dramatic and traumatic, and Spencer works to succeed and find his own path. Each episode starts with a recap of what happened in the previous one, and I was shocked time after time that this series was based on a true story. The phrase "based on a true story" often means some of the plot is emphasized, and that not all of it is a replica of what actually happened. However, even in a minor way, or if some parts were true, the story is nothing short of jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring, and just amazing. The producer of All-American, Robbie Rogers, does a remarkable job of character development. As I binged All-American, finishing it in 3 days, I felt some sort of family-like connection to almost every single character. I knew so much about each character, yet there was so much more that I wanted to know. And All-American somehow covered it all. There was never just one thing going on, as each character had their own issues, their own life, but somehow they were all connected from the hilltops of Beverly Hills to the depths of the hood in Crenshaw. With everything going on in the show, somehow touching on every possible topic I could think of, the suspense was chilling. Each show ended with cliffhanger after cliffhanger. I just had to keep watching. It was addicting. The show is not your classic teenage sports story. It is the lessons that are taught that are important, and the football aspect is just a small part of it. Everyone can relate to the show in many ways, and the themes exposed in it are endless. The characters exhibit many conflicts of interest, decision-making dilemmas, and romances. The show offers comedy and deals with drug and alcohol issues. The series has it all. Throughout the entire series, the producers drop subtle messages and ideas that seem like they do not matter, when in the next episode, this idea may become the focus of the storyline. Often it is not the words said by the characters that matter, but what our eyes see, as it is important that the viewer is watching carefully, as well as deeply distinguishing the thoughts of each character. Everything seems so realistic, and to depict exact scenery, the show was filmed in South Los Angeles, where the story took place. I wondered at some point if they had to hire actual gang members to become actors for the show, or if they needed to hire strong football players who were willing to work out constantly and full out tackle each other. The blood seemed real, along with all the astounding effects. I recommend All-American to any viewer, as anyone can enjoy and appreciate any of the lessons taught. The emphasis on family in the show is important. It reveals the damage of what hiding the truth can do. I have learned the values of family, friends, and what it means to be there for someone, stick up for someone, or actually know if someone is truly okay. One might think that their lie is kept secret, but even if this is the case, carrying the weight of this lie or mistake is not worth it. The notion that everyone deserves a second chance is not something I previously fully believed in, but it is something the show taught me. Everyone seems to appreciate this show to its full worth, learning from the lessons taught, and I will openly and honestly say that All-American is a must-watch.
Wow. Okay. That was a great review, and it sounds like you really, really liked it. Wow. So the one question I have is, I know like you're a sports lover, as am I. So given the political aspects of the show and the sports aspects of the show, which would you say were more intriguing or made this show more fun?
I think definitely if you enjoy sports, you will enjoy that aspect of the show. But even like this hits on racial inequality. Like they got pulled over for being black, and the dad never thought he had to teach his Beverly Hills son like how to react to a cop pulling him over. So it all depends on where you live, and like every aspect I could think of, like racism or even the football aspect, like how his entire dream and desires to play football, and even when he wants to give it up, he like can't. It's part of him. So just everything comes together, and I feel like they did a really good job of making the story whole.
And kind of similar, like what I was talking about with Dee, given the current situations with like issues with like African Americans and police officers and things like that. So you said there was something about like them being pulled over and facing some of that inequality. So do you like feel like current scenarios are like reflected in that show?
Yeah, there was I felt like in recent like on Instagram stories that I'll see, like it reminded me of All American, of certain scenes that I saw of police judging people or just stereotyping people for no reason, just because they don't know why that car is in that neighborhood or why these people are going to this store or something like that.
Right. And yeah, I mean that right there is one of the things that we can learn from, an alternate reality in TV, that it really does reflect in our actual day in life, even though living in Port Washington, it might seem so far away. And I would ask if you would recommend it, but I think I already know the answer to that question. So thank you, Eric. That was an awesome review.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to go to Rebecca Hyde, and I believe this is a movie review, if I'm not mistaken, of All the Bright Places.
Yes, I watched this movie in the beginning of quarantine. All the Bright Places, a current film that was released on February 28th, 2020 on Netflix, is a wonderful teen drama. The film was directed by Brett Haley, who also directed a 2018 film called Heartbeat Loud. The soundtrack was created by Keegan DeWitt, and in addition, the film had many producers such as Ellie Fanning, Mitchell Kaplan, David S. Greathouse, and Andrew Spalding. The screenplay was written by Jennifer Nevane and Elizabeth Hanna. In my opinion, the film's team worked together to create a powerful message. The film is based on a novel for young adults by Jennifer Nevane. I decided to watch it after hearing about all the buzz it created. The film deals with major issues such as teen suicide and depression. These are important issues that need to be dealt with, especially right now. Coping with depression and suicide are serious themes in the film, in my opinion. However, the film does not glorify these issues. Both main characters deal with serious mental health conditions such as depression and bipolar disorder. The film starts with Finch finding Violet at her darkest moment, standing on top of a bridge, about to jump and commit suicide. Finch saves her life by convincing her that suicide isn't the answer. Opening with this heartbreaking scene, the film instantly gives each character a complex storyline, and as the film progresses, we learn about them. For example, they are both greatly affected by their home lives. Finch has bipolar disorder caused by his abusive father and suicidal thoughts caused by Violet's sister's sudden death. Of course, their mental illness doesn't just come from these circumstances. As the film concludes, both characters fall in love and find their happiness. However, can love fix mental illness? Sadly, no. The film concludes in an unexpected way, with Finch taking his own life. Although the story opens with Finch saving Violet, it concludes with Finch not being able to save himself. The ending of this film shows the audience that mental health is a very important topic that needs more attention and care. Although a person may look as if their life is put together, they often still may be suffering greatly inside. Reviewers of this film say it was beautiful and informative. The film illustrates how teenagers often struggle with mental health issues that are often overlooked or looked down upon, according to Candace Frederick, writer of the New York Times, who continues, Ellie Fanning and Justice Smith breathe life into a film about mental illness and the healing power of love. To me, All the Bright Places show that you're not alone, that you never know what's happening in someone else's mind or lives. I think this movie can bring awareness to society and help make a positive change. Overall, I thought this movie was beautifully made.
Thank you for that review. And that right there sounds like a very, very powerful movie. So one question I have after watching it, would you say that the two main characters, was their love based on the fact that they could relate due to their mental illnesses? Did they bond over that, or was it just that they had fallen in love kind of on their own?
I think they definitely bonded on it, yeah.
Okay. And then obviously, like we've seen with the first two shows that we talked about, this one obviously is not about race or anything like that, but still, mental illness and the stigma surrounding is something very prevalent today. It's very much a topic we talk about. So do you feel like you gained a new perspective on mental illness and the stigma surrounding it and all those topics around it, or do you feel like your previous opinions were strengthened or changed by watching this film?
I think it definitely like showed you a different perspective because you think that this character has it all together, but in reality it isn't true. So I
Yeah.
think it definitely changed.
And would you recommend the movie for not only people interested in learning more about mental health, but just the average moviegoer?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so now we go to our last review with Katie Winter, who watched Euphoria, another very popular show that's out now. So, Katie, why don't you tell us about Euphoria?
Yeah, so this was actually my rewatch, and basically I was just trying to establish whether or not this was kind of like the Euphoria was worth the hype. The music, clothes, makeup, and repeated shots work together to make the show more cohesive and give it depth throughout the season. Um, an integral part of the show is the music, as I mentioned, which is woven in seamlessly throughout the whole season. In particular, I would like to highlight the episode Shook Ones Part 2. Within this episode, it's filmed like a ballet almost, but it isn't silent and there isn't a lot of dancing. What I mean is that the director chose to use numerous tracking shots to keep the episode flowing and interconnected among many of the subplots. In addition, the element that takes this episode to the next level is the orchestral music playing in the background. As we watch the characters wander around the carnival while a symphony of chaos is unfolding around them. The reason I chose to describe this episode as a ballet was that while we understand how these characters feel, the director clearly selected the music to push emotional attachment to the situations and characters deeper. The music that was composed for the show is used brilliantly throughout the program to build connections and impart deeper meaning to the characters. And although I wish I could discuss all the elements that I mentioned earlier, that is just not possible within this amount of time. So to keep this review brief, the final element that I'm going to mention is the use of repeated shots. Although I do warn before I go any farther that this is a spoiler. So Rue, who is the main character in this show, struggles a lot with mental health, as well as her drug addiction. And an important motif created in the show for Rue is the idea that her life has cycles of ups and downs. In fact, I'm losing my voice, I'm sorry. In fact, Rue has a voiceover discussing how in good times there will be bad times, but in bad times there will also be good times. As a result, Rue has a constant fear of slipping back into the bad times, even when she is enjoying her life and moving in a positive direction. After watching the first season of Euphoria again, I saw that the director truly brought this idea full circle in the season through small details that someone may only notice on their second watch. As I said before, I could talk endlessly about the show, but at its core, Euphoria tackles serious issues like teen relationship abuse, and this show is just about teenagers who are dealing with situations that are far beyond the reach of most high schoolers' realistic experiences. But what holds true and makes the show such a hit is the characters themselves. Each character has their own fears and insecurities that we can all relate to. For this reason, I would recommend this show to anyone, but particularly to teenagers. Euphoria makes feeling uncomfortable, insecure, and awkward in your teen years feel normal. Most importantly, this show is a reminder that being a teen is not easy, whether you are a skinny cheerleader, struggling with mental illness, or grappling with your emerging sexuality or identity.
Thank you for that review. That was awesome. Okay, this is just one question I've had about the show, as someone who hasn't seen it. I know Zendaya is in the show, and I feel like we all kind of know her as like a Disney character. So how was it to see someone who's like a childhood actor mainly in that very serious role?
I think that was something else that kind of drew me to the show is I feel like I hadn't really seen Zendaya in something more serious, but I think that she's just a really fantastic actor, and I think people should definitely be giving her a chance and kind of like while yes her Disney days were like her start, I think it's important to see that like she's kind of moving in a different direction now, and she's like a really strong actor.
Right. And then another thing, I noticed that maybe this just comes from the second watch of it, but like you really picked up on these like specific details, like the film work, the shots you talked about, the music. So for you, is that something you were paying attention to the first time, or was only something that came out the second
I think that is something that I noticed the first time because I think that the writers and the director put a lot of work into a lot of small details. So yes, I did notice them the first time, but I definitely did not notice them as much as I did the second time.
Right. And then for people wanting to watch it for the first time, would you recommend looking for those small details, or do you think that if you're going to watch it for the first time, you should just focus on the bigger like how would you recommend going about watching it the first time?
If you're just gonna be watching it the first time, I just think like having an open mind. I don't think it's like obviously while I did like explain that it has a lot of like deeper meaning, and I think it's better than like the average high school like drama for those reasons. I think that if you're just gonna be watching it the first time, just watch it to enjoy it and just kind of keep an open mind about everything that's happening. I know like a lot of people like had complaints about it because they felt like it just wasn't realistic to like a high school experience. And I understand that, but I think that for this show, it doesn't need to be.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for that review. Really appreciate it. And so that's going to conclude our reviews. We got three awesome shows, it sounds like, and one really great movie. And it sounds like we are getting shows that people are watching and movies that people are watching that do deal with issues that are coming up in our society, like we saw with the race relations in the first two, and then we see the high school mental health, all those different things that also come up in our lives as well as soon to be high school graduates, but of course still teenagers. So this will conclude our Schreiber Times podcast, and I really appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you. I really appreciate it. You were awesome. You all had awesome reviews, and I'm looking forward to seeing this podcast out on YouTube and Instagram and all those other things. So everyone make sure you check it out. All right. Thank you so much.